You weren't supposed to hear this, not because it's classified or because the state would deny it exists, but because the moment you hear it, you're no longer who you were a second ago. Something inside you changes permanently. They call them pack children. That's the polite term. On paper, they're listed as wards of the state, shuffled between foster care facilities until someone specialized can handle them. But that's just the cover. What they really are is the living consequence of a deal struck between a human and something that isn't. And no, I don't mean aliens or anything so comfortably fictional. I'm talking about entities older than history, older than language, older than the very shape of the human soul. These children carry the terms of those deals inside them. You can't see it, you can't smell it, but if you look too long into their eyes, you'll feel it. The faint shift in your thoughts, the part of you that knows instinctively that you're in the presence of something predatory. The Thornfield Group home was never meant to be found. It doesn't exist on maps. The road leading to it doesn't even have a name. Inside, 12 children live under rules that aren't meant to protect them, but to protect everyone else. I've worked here for years, long enough to understand that the rules aren't arbitrary. They are containment measures. Fail to follow them, and you don't get fired. You vanish. When a new child arrives, there's a moment, a quiet shift in the air where the others notice, not with words, not with looks, but the stillness, the way every breath in the facility seems to wait. That's how it was when Zara came. 7 years old, brown hair and pigtails, clutching a stuffed rabbit with both hands. She looked harmless, but harmless doesn't make the others stop breathing when she walks past. You need to understand something before I take you deep. These children, they aren't learning to be dangerous. They were born dangerous. Some try to hide it. Some play along with the idea of being normal. But if you listen, really listen, you'll hear it at night. The whispers, soft, rhythmic, just below the edge of language. And once you hear them, they'll never sound like strangers again. The first night with a new child is always the same. Staff gather in the office after lights out, pretending to do paperwork while we listen. The audio feed from the security cameras runs constantly, not for safety, but for patterns. Some pretend we're just watching for fights or crying fits, but that's not what we're really listening for. We're listening for the change. With Zara, it happened at 2:13 a.m. The dorm wing was silent, except for the low hum of the heaters. Then, the pitch of the air shifted. I don't know how else to explain it. The microphones picked it up as a faint distortion, like an old VHS tape bending the picture. I froze. So did everyone else, on the monitor. She sat up in bed, not like a child waking from sleep, but slow, deliberate, as if she had been awake the entire time. She set her rabbit on the pillow, slid her feet to the floor, and walked to the far wall. There's nothing on that wall, just paint. But she pressed her palm against it and began to speak, not speak, recite words too quick to be any language I know, rising and falling like waves. The boy in the next bed turned to the wall, then another and another 12 children, all sitting up, eyes glassy, murmuring with her, in perfect unison. The temperature dropped, frost formed on the inside of the windows, though the heaters were still running. I could see my breath in the office. When it stopped, she climbed back into bed, pulled the blanket over her head, and didn't move again. The others did the same. The senior staff locked the office door and told us, if she speaks to the wall again, you do not interfere. You do not enter the room. You do not even write it in the log. That's when I realized we're not here to help these children. We're here to make sure the outside world never learns what they're capable of. 3 nights later, it happened again. This time I was the only one in the monitoring room. The senior staff had gone upstairs. I told myself they were doing rounds, but deep down I knew they just didn't want to be here when it started. At 1:59 a.m., the air thickened like the pressure before a storm. The feed from Dorm Wing C flickered. Static washed over the screen, then cleared. Zara was already awake, standing in the center of the room, barefoot, her nightgown clinging to her legs like it was wet. She turned her head, not toward the camera, but through it, as if she knew I was there. Her mouth moved, no sound at first. Then a whisper, faint, but sharp enough to cut through the speakers. Come closer. Every instinct told me to get up, to run, but I didn't. I leaned toward the monitor. That's when the other children rose, one by one, no hesitation. They formed a circle around her, hands clasped, heads tilted back, eyes white. And then they began to hum. The sound vibrated in my bones. It wasn't loud, but it was inside me, like the noise was coming from my own skull. The lights in the dorm dimmed. The security feed warped. Shapes moved in the shadows between the beds. Not children, not human. They crawled, jerked, stretched in ways no body should. I couldn't breathe, couldn't blink. Then Zara spoke again. Not to the children, not to the things in the dark, to me. Open the door. The key card was in my hand before I even realized it. Fingers trembling. Sweat running down my back. I was halfway to the door when the intercom crackled. A single voice, low, urgent. Sit down. The screen went black. When it came back on, they were all asleep, as if nothing had happened, except for Zara. She was staring straight into the lens and smiling. The morning after, the whole building smelled like bleach. The hall outside Dorm Wing C was taped off. Yellow plastic. Security stationed at both ends. They said it was a maintenance issue, a pipe leak. But pipes don't leave blood trails. From my desk in the monitoring room, I could see it. Dark stains soaking into the hallway carpet. Someone had tried to scrub it. But the fibers still held the shape, like fingers dragging. By noon, the rumors started. One of the night nurses was missing. Her locker was empty, her nameplate already gone. When I asked about her, they told me she quit. Effective immediately. No paperwork, no farewell. But her car was still in the staff parking lot. Keys in the ignition. Engine cold. That night, Zara was quiet. Too quiet. She sat on her bed, hands folded in her lap, staring at the wall. When I switched to infrared mode, her hands were glowing, like they were holding heat, like she was holding something. At 2:14 a.m., she stood up, walked to the camera, and whispered 3 words. They took her. Before I could react, every other child in the dorm spoke in unison, repeating it over and over. They took her. They took her. They took her. The intercom blared, static and shouting, voices overlapping. Shut it down. Don't let them. Pull the feed. The screen cut to black. When it came back, the room was empty. No Zara, no children, just the hum of the air vents. The vents in Dorm Wing C. They were older than the building. Steel grates bolted to crumbling concrete. Maintenance never touched them. Said they were sealed off. But at night, they hummed, not the steady hum of airflow, but something irregular, like breath. After Zara vanished, I stayed late, pretending to log footage. But my eyes were on the vents. At 3:02 a.m., a grate shifted, just slightly. Then it opened. 2 hands, thin, pale, veins like black wires, gripped the edge. They weren't children's hands. The fingers were too long, the nails too sharp. A head followed, hair matted, skin blistered, eyes reflecting red in the low light. It didn't crawl out. It unfolded. Knees bent the wrong way, joints clicking like old hinges, mouth twitching, not in speech, in hunger. It scanned the room, slow, deliberate, listening. Then it sniffed the air and smiled. The camera feed glitched, one frame missing, two, three. When the image returned, the thing was gone, the grate was back in place. But on the lens, 3 small fingerprints smudged, still wet. The first message came the next night, written in the condensation on the inside of the camera lens. 4 words, backwards, like it wanted me to struggle to read them. I can see you. I cleaned the lens, but the words reappeared, dripping slowly, like the letters were alive. The second message wasn't written. It was spoken, through the intercom. A voice I didn't recognize, wet, rattling. Where is Zara? It wasn't a question. It was a demand. I checked the control logs. No one had accessed the intercom. No one was even on that floor. By morning, the walls of Dorm Wing C were covered, finger trails, long arcs, scratches that went deep into the paint. When I followed them, they led back to the vents. I shined my flashlight inside. The beam caught something, not eyes, not movement, a piece of paper, folded, tucked between the metal slats. I pulled it out. It was damp, smelled like rust and rot. Inside, a drawing. Dozens of stick figures, all lined up, all headless, and at the end of the line, one larger figure, holding something, a head, smiling. At the bottom, a signature, not in ink, in blood. I confronted the head custodian, Mr. Vale. He'd been here longer than anyone. When I told him about the vents, the messages, the drawing, he didn't look surprised. He just sighed and locked the office door. You've seen it, haven't you? His voice was low, like someone might be listening. I nodded. He leaned forward. It's not new, it's not even from here. The building was built around it. I thought he meant the vents. He didn't. Before this was an orphanage, this land was a hospital, a quarantine ward. They kept the infected underground, no windows, no light. He rubbed his hands like they were cold. When the last one died, they sealed the tunnels, or so they thought. The thing in the vents, it wasn't an orphan, it wasn't a patient. It was something else, something that didn't die with the others. Mr. Vale's eyes kept darting to the ceiling, to the vents above us. It's not trapped down there anymore. It moves between the walls, between the floors. It's learned the paths we can't follow. I asked him what it wanted. He hesitated, then whispered, "It's collecting." Before I could ask what that meant, a loud clang echoed through the ducts. Vale froze. It heard me. The lights flickered. A shadow slid across the vent opening. Slow, deliberate. Vale's voice dropped to a rasp. Don't ever speak its name. I didn't mean to hear it. It made me. That night, the vents were louder, breathing, like something massive was forcing itself through. I put in earplugs, turned on the radio, tried to drown it out. At exactly 3:07 a.m., everything went silent. Not quiet. Silent. Like sound itself had been taken away. Then a whisper, right behind my ear. 3 syllables low. Slipping under my skin. The name. It wasn't human. It wasn't meant for a human mouth. It felt like ice water was being poured down my spine. The moment I heard it, the room shifted. The air got heavier, like the walls were leaning in. I wanted to forget it, but forgetting wasn't an option. Every time I blinked, I saw the letters, scrawled on the inside of my eyelids, burning. By morning, it had left the name everywhere, written in soap on the bathroom mirrors, carved into the wood of my door, whispered from the vents whenever I tried to sleep. I covered the mirrors, scrubbed the carvings, but the more I tried to erase it, the louder it became. By the 3rd day, I caught myself saying it out loud, not because I wanted to, but because it was teaching me to call it. I swore I wouldn't say it, not to anyone, but the name lived in my head, like a splinter, like pressure under the skin. By the fourth night, I slipped. My friend Lena called. She'd been worried. I tried to explain, tried to tell her about the vents, the tunnels, the whispers, and without thinking, I said it, the name. There was silence on the line, long, too long. Then a sharp inhale, like she'd just stepped into cold water. What was that? She asked. Her voice sounded wrong, like it was coming from far away. I told her to forget it, to hang up, to not repeat it, but she was quiet again, and then she whispered it back to me, perfectly. The phone cut out by morning. Her apartment door was still locked from the inside. They found her in the bathroom, sitting in the corner, her eyes wide open. She'd clawed the name into the tile, over and over, until her fingernails were gone. The vents in her ceiling were open, dust falling from the edges. They said it was a breakdown, that she'd done it to herself. But I know the truth. It came for her because I let her hear it. And now it's looking for the next one. I thought I could outrun it, leave the apartment, leave the vents. I was wrong. 3 days after Lena, I moved. New place, no ducts, no metal grates. I told myself it was over. But the first night, it found me. I was walking back from the store, cold air, empty streets, and then that sound, the same low breathing, not from above, from behind me. I turned, nothing. But there, on the brick wall, was a vent, not built in, not connected to anything, just there, bolted to bare brick. And something inside it shifting, listening. I crossed the street, heart pounding. A block later, another vent, this one on a lamppost. It was following me, moving, keeping pace. I started running. When I reached my apartment door, there was one right above it. The grate was bent, and something wet was dripping through. Inside my new place, every wall, every corner had a vent now, and no matter where I stand, one of them is always behind me. The first voice came at 3 a.m., a soft knock from inside the vent above my bed. Then, Lena's voice, clear, sharp. You shouldn't have said it. I froze. The air in the room felt heavy. I told myself it wasn't her. It couldn't be her. But the way she breathed between words, it was the same. Another vent answered, a man's voice this time, one I hadn't heard in years. My father. He'd been dead for 12, buried in another city. It's here for you now, he said. The voices began to overlap, dozens of them. Some I recognized, some I didn't. Whispers, laughter, crying. It felt like the vents were holding them, like each one was a mouth. And inside, every person it had ever taken. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the sound wasn't in my ears anymore. It was in my head. Say it again, they begged. Say the name. If I said it, I knew it would take me too. But I also knew part of me wanted to. I lasted 4 nights without answering. But the 5th, they changed the sound. No more voices, no more words, just breathing, deep, slow. It wasn't human, the kind of breath that feels too big for lungs, too heavy for a chest. I crept closer to the nearest vent, told myself I'd just listen, just once. The air coming through was cold and damp, like it had been dragged through a cave. Then a second sound, wet, shuffling. Something dragging itself forward. It hit the grate from the inside, hard enough to make the screws shake. I saw movement, pale, flesh. It didn't have a face, not exactly, just skin stretched too tight, and an opening, too wide, too wet. It didn't breathe through it. It whispered not a word, a sound, like it was learning my breath, matching it. The metal began to bend, not outwards, inwards, like it was pulling me through. I ran. Every vent I passed was breathing faster. I thought if I stayed in one room, with the door locked, It couldn't reach me. I was wrong. The first crash came from the kitchen, metal tearing, wood splintering, then another from the hallway, closer. The vents weren't in the walls anymore. They were moving. I saw it happen, the one above the bathroom door. Dropped. Hit the floor like an animal. It wasn't a square anymore. It had shape. A bent skeletal frame of ducts and steel. Crawling on jointed elbows, every turn it made, the metal screamed. Another slam through the drywall pulled itself free like a spider shedding skin. The air stank, rot and rust. They didn't just follow. They hunted, each one making the same sound. My breath, perfectly matched, perfectly timed. I backed into the corner. They stopped moving. They knew I couldn't go anywhere. The one closest to me tilted its frame like it was looking. Then it opened, wider than metal should. Inside, something pale, something wet, reaching. It pulled itself out, slow, like it enjoyed the struggle. First came the hands, longer than they should be, knuckles sharp, skin blistered and peeling. Then the head, or what should have been one, no eyes, no nose, just folds of wet skin. It tilted like it was smelling me. Its mouth wasn't where a mouth should be. It ran from ear to ear, split open. A black pit lined with teeth that didn't match. They weren't human. They weren't even from the same thing. Every breath it took made the air in the room heavier, harder to swallow. I heard the others moving in the walls, dozens of them, all breathing, all waiting. The one in front of me leaned closer, and it spoke. Not in words, in my voice. Come back. That was the last thing I remember. Before the lights went out, I woke up on the floor. Concrete. Cold enough to burn my skin. The air tasted like dust and iron. There were no windows, no doors, just vents. Every wall, every corner, every inch of ceiling covered in them. Some were small, some big enough to crawl through. I could hear movement inside, dozens of them, maybe more. They whispered, not in words, in sounds I'd made before. Laughing, coughing, crying, I turned in a circle. They all faced me, not flat, not still. Each one bulged outward, breathing. A draft moved past my face, warm, wet. Something slid out of the nearest vent, not the thing from before, something bigger. It filled the opening, too large to leave, but it didn't need to, because it had already sent its hands, dozens of them, reaching from every vent at once. The first hand touched my ankle, cold, strong enough to bruise. I kicked. It didn't let go. Another grabbed my wrist, then my shoulder, then my neck. They didn't pull all at once. They took turns, slow, testing me. From the corner of my eye, a vent slid open. The metal folded like paper, and something came through. It wasn't crawling. It was pouring. Flesh, hands, faces pressed into skin like water trapped under ice. Every vent in the room opened at once. The sound was like 100 people inhaling together, deep, hungry. I tried to scream. A hand covered my mouth. Another slid around my head. I felt my feet leave the floor, my body turning sideways. They were pulling me toward the largest vent. Its opening pulsed like a throat, the edges wet, moving. Inside, it wasn't dark. It was red. I realized the walls weren't metal. They were meat, and they were swallowing me. I woke up moving, not walking, sliding. The surface beneath me pulsed. It squeezed. It pushed me forward. Every few seconds, the walls shuddered like a heartbeat. I tried to brace myself. My hands sank into the walls, not into metal, into muscle. The smell was overwhelming. Rot and blood. Ahead of me, a sound, wet chewing. I crawled forward, not because I wanted to, because the walls pushed me. The tunnel widened. I could stand. I wish I hadn't. The chamber was massive, dripping, alive. On the floor, piles of bones, some clean, some still wearing scraps of clothes. The ceiling opened like a mouth. From it, a figure lowered, not hanging, growing. Its eyes were mine. Its voice was mine. It smiled and said, "You made it back." I didn't move. Neither did it. We just stared at each other, breathing in the same rhythm. Then it stepped forward. I stepped back. The wall behind me, soft, warm, and it pulsed harder. The figure tilted its head, like it was listening. Then I heard it too. A voice. Hundreds of voices, all speaking at once, all saying my name. They weren't outside. They were inside my head. The figure touched my chest. Its hand slid into me. No pain, just heat. It pulled something out. I saw it, beating, black, covered in veins that moved like worms. "This was never yours," it whispered. The walls shook. The chamber groaned, and the vents began to close. I tried to run. The ground rose up, wrapped around my legs, pulled me down. The last thing I saw was my own body standing over me, holding my heart and smiling.